crash is coming for your money, and I'm going to show you my 3-step plan on not only surviving it, but using it to your advantage. I started investing in 2001. I caught the tail end of the dot-com bubble. I went through the 2008 crisis, the COVID crash, and every major crash and minor one in between. And each one of them taught me a lesson, which I've turned into a 3-step plan. So look, it doesn't matter if you got $500 in an index fund or 30 years of savings in a 401k or a retirement account. The crash will come sooner or later, and you need a plan for it. Because in a big crash, most people lose their money, but a small group of people make generational wealth off the back of it. I'll show you how to be in that second group, the small group. So look, don't buy anything today, don't sell anything, don't like this video even, don't even subscribe. Just give me around 15 minutes and I'll walk you through the plan. By the end of this video, you'll be ready for whatever happens. Right, so on the 9th of January this year, Meta signed a deal to buy electricity for 20 years. I know that's a random opener, but stick with me through this because a simple contract has changed the course of the entire AI bubble. It's called a power purchase agreement, a PPA. All it means is that a company that needs a lot of power goes to a company that makes a lot of power and says, all right, we're going to take this much power for this long at roughly this price. It's like you signing a 3-year lease on a shop. If your business goes under in 1 year though, the landlord doesn't care. You still have to pay that lease, right? Which is the same as a PPA. If they don't need the power anymore, they still got to pay for that power. We'll get back to that later though, because it's a very important point. But first, who signed what? So Meta announced agreements with 3 companies, Vistra, TerraPower, and Oklo, OKLO, covering up to 6.6 gigawatts of nuclear power. And Meta isn't the only one, by the way. Microsoft signed a 20-year deal for 835 megawatts to restart 3 Mile Island, of all places. This isn't a name I expected to hear in 2026. For those of you who don't know, 3 Mile Island is home to a nuclear power plant, most famous for a partial meltdown it had in 1979. Half the plant kept running after this meltdown. For about 40 years, it shut down in 2019. Now it's coming back because the world needs power so badly that we're resurrecting old nuclear power plants for it. Google also signed for 500 megawatts with a company called Kairos, K-A-I-R-O-S. Now, you might be sat there thinking, so what? A big company needs to buy electricity to power their AI crap. Why do I care? Because of what a signed contract actually is. Everything else in the AI bubble right now is nonsense. It's a forecast, somebody's projections about revenue that hasn't arrived, building a product that might not end up working, sold to customers who might not even show up. But the contract is an obligation. Meta has committed to buying a metric ton of power into the mid-2040s, and the commitment exists even if the AI bubble pops, which means the company selling the power gets paid either way. It's beautiful. Just like if you sign a 3-year lease. That's what I was on about earlier. If you sign a 3-year lease, but you go out of business, you still got to pay that lease. And it gets way more interesting when you look at how much power this whole AI crap needs against how much there actually is in the world. S&P Global says American data centers are looking at around 76 gigawatts of demand this year, 108 by 2008 and 134 by 2030. What does that even mean though? What is a gigawatt? Everyone talks about them, but no one actually tells you what it means. I looked this up. It's insane. 1 gigawatt powers around 800,000 homes per year. Right? So by 2030, data centers on their own want the electricity of roughly 107 million American homes. And you cannot build that out in 4 years. That infrastructure, it cannot just be sprung up out of nowhere. Nobody can build it. Is AI really worth all this? I don't think so. But well, either way, the contracts are signed, so this shit is going to get built. So it doesn't matter if the AI bubble pops, the power companies, they're going to win either way. And then on top of that, the power stations still have every other customer they had before AI, because electricity has been a business for like, what, 100 years before anyone had to train a stupid AI model? Your fridge doesn't care about AI, neither does the hospital or the guy down the street charging his electric car. That's the idea behind everything I'm about to show you. You want to own things that get paid whichever way the story ends. That's important. That's the mindset of an investor. Right, so let's break this down into 3 steps. The first one isn't a stock for you to buy. It's more about how to think about investing. Stop investing for next year, start investing for 2036, the next 10 years. I know that sounds, like generic advice. Every finance channel says, think long-term, and then they make a video about what's gonna happen next Thursday. So let me show you why it changes everything when you actually start thinking like this with some actual numbers. So I pulled the last 10 years of data. This is real money, dividends included, 10 grand into the NASDAQ in July of 2016. How much money would you have made? it'd be worth $65,000 today. If you put that in the S&P 500, about 40,000. If you put that into utility stocks, about 24,000. If you put it in consumer staples like toothpaste or washing powder companies, about 20,000. You would have doubled your money. So where are you invested? You would have ended up making money, but some places more so than others. Now, looking at that list, it's easy to believe that you could have just bought tech stocks or indexes and not worried about anything. That's not exactly true though, because let me show you the 10 years before that, July 2006 through to July 2016. So we're doing the same maths, dividends included. Your 10 grand in the S&P 500 becomes about 20,000. You would have doubled your money. Fine, nothing wrong with that. That's great, really. But the boring stuff ended up beating it in that period. Staple stocks turned the same 10 grand into nearly 30,000. Utilities did 23,000, barely above it, but above it. So in this period, the toothpaste and washing powder companies beat the entire American stock market over that 10 years. And if you go back one decade further, or 2000 to 2010, the numbers changed completely again. Same $10,000, the S&P went backwards. You would have finished with about 9,550. You would have lost money over 10 years. 10 years to lose money is not great. And after inflation, you probably would have lost a fair bit more than that. Staples turned that 10 grand into 16,200 in the same period. Utilities did 15,700. And the NASDAQ, the one that won the last 10 years, if you put 10,000 in the NASDAQ in the year 2000, by 2010, you'd have $4,600. Not much. That's why it's called the last decade. If you spent it in tech or in the NASDAQ, you lost more than half of your money. So this happened in the same country, the same market. The answer just flips completely depending on what decade you invested in. And you might be thinking, all right, so Nick, which decade are we in right now? I don't know. Nobody knows. Not me, not the fund manager on CNBC who's been wrong for 3 years and keeps pretending he's right. Nobody knows. Nobody. Right? Anyone telling you which decade 2026 to 2036 will be is guessing with confidence, and they're not going to be right. My mentor Gary put it better than I ever have. He told me a long time ago, you can either be right or you can be wealthy. If you focus all your time on being right, you're going to lose money. You have to focus on building wealth. And once you actually accept that, the question changes. It stops being, is this going to fall? And it becomes, will this be worth more 10 years from now? The first one is always eventually yes, because everything pumps and then dumps a little bit and then pumps again. But the second one is the only one that you can actually build a plan around. So like I said, I've invested through 2001, 2008, 2012, 2020, 2022. I didn't read about those things in a book. And the thing that every one of them had in common is that people who got destroyed weren't the ones who owned the wrong thing. They were the ones who owned a perfectly good thing on a timescale that they couldn't survive. By the way, if you want to see exactly how I'm positioned for all of this, I've written it down in a free guide called How to Retire by 2036, 10 years from now. Link below, and it gets you on my newsletter too. Check it out. It's awesome. So let's get back into it. Step 2 is to own what pays you either way. We've already kind of talked about this. So if we are buying for 2036, what do we actually buy? For me, it's the layer underneath the AI story than the story itself, the power. Well, I've already talked about this, but we're going to go a bit deeper. So I've been building positions in Vistra and NextEra, also Total Energies, which is a European oil major, and Centrus, which does uranium processing. The tickers are going to be up on screen. The editor will put them there. Not advice, by the way. That's just what I'm doing with my money. You don't have to choose the same companies as me, but let's talk about why I'm looking at energy companies. Then you can do your research and pick your favorite energy companies. They don't have to be the same as mine. So I mentioned Vistra earlier because Meta signed that 20-year contract with them. And I want to own a slice of that company holding that contract because that contract must be paid by Meta no matter what the AI bubble does. So energy companies are my exciting play. They have strong upside, but they aren't totally reliant on the AI bubble growing. They are the picks and shovels of the AI race, but they have something else going for them, like, electric vehicles or the green energy revolution. But also, I want to have some safer, more stable parts of my portfolio, which brings me to the boring stuff. Now, a lot of people say that consumer staples and utilities are bad long-term holds. The logic behind that is that they go up when everyone's scared, then they sit there doing nothing for years when things are all good. And in the last decade, that is true. Staples did about half of what the S&P did, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but I still think it's a bad argument, and the decade before that is the reason why. I already showed you those numbers too. Holding some staples is a decision about what you think happens for the next 10 years. Does it look like 2000 through to 2010, or does it look more like 2016 through to 2026? It's up to you. But either way, all that matters is I'm very confident that the staple stocks I'm invested in will be worth more in 10 years than they are today. So that's all that matters to me. But really, this is about balancing your risk so you're still standing with money 10 years from now, ready to invest. Staying in the game is the whole edge, and there's nothing wrong with rebalancing your portfolio towards boring stuff When the exciting stuff seems overheated, in my opinion it's overheated, maybe it's not for you. And the other thing is, I held Nvidia and Palantir and others from around 2022, 2023 through to the end of 2025, and then I got out. I made my profit. I think they are overpriced now. That's my personal opinion. And I'd rather chunk that money into the next thing, which I think is going to be energy. But hey, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It doesn't matter. Like I said, I think 10 years from now, they'll be up anyway. And also, don't think that America is the only place in the world where you can put your money. These days, you pretty much have access to the whole world. And there are other countries that have more potential upside than the US. If you think stocks in the US are too expensive, are overheated, and their upside is limited, you could look for other countries. For example, I sold a lot of my S&P and chucked that into the WIG, the WIG, which is Poland's version of the S&P. It's just an index of the Polish market, essentially. I talked about this earlier this year, and now it's up twice as much as the S&P. Not bad so far, but we'll see what happens over the next 10 years, although I'm probably going to sell my position there because Poland's looking a bit shaky in the coming years. Anyway, I also hold gold and silver. I think they're protection against debasement, so that's another thing. So to summarize step 2, it's not about selling everything and going all in on gold, silver, boring staples. It's about taking a look at what will be resilient no matter what happens to the market and planning around that. That's how you think as an investor. And yes, I 100% agree that if no crash comes and the market keeps flying up and AI keeps pumping, then you'd probably make more money holding AI stocks. But this step is about balancing those risks, because I want to be in a good position if the AI bubble keeps running, but I also want to be in a good position if it doesn't. And that sort of thinking is what's kept me in the game for 25 years. And also, I think this is a mistake that a lot of people make, where they think if you're not making the most money possible, then you've lost. No, you only lose money if you lose money. If you make less than someone else who got lucky on an AI trade, you're not losing money, you're just making a little bit less. Anyway, let's talk about step 3. I've talked about step 2 for too long. This is the one that turns a crash from something that happens to you into something that you can actually use. And we can break this up into 2 parts. First is the cash you put aside. And this is not your emergency fund, that is completely separate. Your emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of bills and it's untouchable. You really need to have that as an investor. The whole reason that people sell at the bottom, let me explain this, is that in a recession, they might lose their job the same month that the market collapses, and their stocks are the only money they have left to access. So they have to sell those stocks to pay for food. So keeping an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months is essential. But you also want to keep more money aside that is separate to your emergency fund. How much you keep is completely up to you and where you are in life. Some people keep 10%, some keep 50%. It depends entirely on your situation. If you're 25 with 40 years in front of you until retirement, you probably want most of your money working for you rather than just sat there waiting. If you think everything looks expensive, you're 40 years old, you might want to sit on more. That's like me right now. And it shouldn't be sat doing nothing because cash rots. 10 grand in cash in 2016 is still 10 grand today, except the 2016 dollar now buys you about 72 cents of stuff. So really, it's become $7,200 if you've held 10K since then. And that's if you believe the official inflation numbers. In reality, it's more like it's become 5K. So park it in short-term government bills where it earns something while it waits. It's still cash and you can get access to it. It's just not rotting away and losing value to inflation. Well, it might lose a little bit of value, but not 4% per year. So the first half is to keep cash. The second half is to plan when you're going to spend that cash. And this is so important. And nobody really does this. So you might have a list of stocks that you want to buy, but you need to also write down the number you want to buy it at. You want to put, I'll buy it when it gets to this price. And when it actually gets there, you know to buy it. Because when it does get there, by the way, if the market crashes, every headline on earth is going to be telling you that the market's going lower and buying will feel insane. And you're going to be under a lot of pressure. That's what a bottom feels like from the inside. So you have to decide today, while you're calm, what price you want to own these things at. Then when it gets there, you're not making a decision under pressure. You're following instructions that the calm version of yourself wrote out a year or two earlier. And this isn't me saying that you're going to sit here and predict exactly what the price of, I don't know, SpaceX or Microsoft or Google will fall to. That's not what this is about. It's not about price prediction. The question is, at what price would I think, or you think, that Microsoft or Google or SpaceX are cheap enough to buy? Where do you want to own them at? Because if that price is now and you think they are cheap now, bloody just buy them now. You don't have to wait. But if you think they're too expensive now, I think they're too expensive now, then you got to wait. And you have to figure out at what price you're going to wait until. So let me do it with some real numbers. So it's not just words. So say you've got $9,000 and you want to invest it into a stock that is currently $100, but you consider the stock a little bit too expensive. You write down a price where you're comfortable buying it at. Let's say it's $50, 50% off. And you're saying, I'm going to buy it when it hits $50, but you don't want to make a price prediction because it might never reach $50. So what do? Do you just buy it today? Well, no, because it's too expensive. If you buy it today, you're going to own like 90 shares of it. If you say, I want to own this at around $50, you can DCA on the way down. So let's say it falls to $80, you can throw in 3K. If it falls to 65, another 3K. If you're lucky and it falls to $50, you throw in your last $3,000. Congrats, you now have 143 shares versus only 90 shares if you bought at $100. And if it doesn't fall, well, it doesn't matter because it was too expensive for you to buy it anyway, so you wouldn't have bought it, right? There's always another stock anyway, so if that one doesn't fall, there's always something else to buy. I'll give you an actual real example, something that I'm considering buying. Now, this might surprise you, but I actually want to buy SpaceX. I think the IPO was a joke, and there's a lot of dodgy accounting going on there, in my opinion, allegedly, but I think that it'll still probably be around in 10 years. I think there's a very good chance it will. I just don't like the price right now. If it drops to around $80, I might buy a little bit of it, just a little bit, just a tiny, tiny bit. Same with Nvidia. I bought it at around $30 and sold it at around 178. I mean, I did sell it on the way up though. I didn't sell everything at 178. I'm not gonna pretend I did. If it comes back to $100, I'm gonna buy. It's at 216 right now or so. So it would have to be a pretty brutal crash, but I think it might be coming. If it doesn't, fine. There's always something else to buy. There's always another stock. Remember that, that's very important. That's all this number is. It's just a price where I'm happy to own the stock. I'm thinking of writing a newsletter on exactly how I calculate these prices for my personal stocks. If you want to check it out, there's a link to my newsletter below. Sign up, it's free. Now I need to tell you what my portfolio looks like right now. Otherwise this is all just talk. I have roughly 40% cash at the moment, about 30% gold and silver, which I've held for years. It was never meant to be 30%, but the way those two have flown up, it's become a big part of my portfolio. While I took a little bit of profit on them, I haven't sold a lot of it. And honestly, I don't think I plan to sell a lot of it. I actually kind of like holding metals. My friends call me Magneto because I'm obsessed with metals. Anyway, and the rest is in stocks, the stocks I've described so far. So energy companies, staples, Poland, and that 40% cash that sat there waiting for a dip. Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, that's stupid, blah, 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 but I'll counter with one thing. Warren Buffett is the greatest investor of our time, and he's sat on roughly 55 to 60% cash right now. His argument is that the market is full of gamblers right now, and everything is too expensive. I tend to agree with him, aside from a few exceptions. That's why I hold a few stocks. And also, I am actively buying more stocks right now, so that 40% is going to become 35% fairly soon, and maybe down to 30%. And I should also say, 40% is a lot, but it suits me specifically. I've got a decent sized portfolio. I took some good profits out of the AI run, and I'm in a comfortable position right now. Sitting on that much cash doesn't hurt me the same way it would hurt someone who's in their 20s and still building, right? And I'll give you an example. If I was starting out with $5,000 today, and this was the start of my investment career, I would not be 40% in cash. I'd be buying stocks. So that's it. That's the 3 steps. Buy for 2036, not for tomorrow, not for next month, because it's the only time scale where you're not gambling. Own the stuff that gets paid whichever way the AI story ends, so you never have to be right about it. Is the AI bubble going to pop? Is it not going to pop? If it doesn't pop, you're still going to make money. That's what's important. And keep some cash aside with a number written down, so then when it does crack, you're buying instead of panicking. I'd rather be prepared and wrong than unprepared and right. That's the way I think about it. Do your own research, and I'll see you in the next one.